Sometimes opening up about certain topics, it can be pretty hard for me just because I don't always like to talk about traumatic things that have gone on in my past because especially with new people and with new friends, I want them to get to know me for the person that I am.
So there's three main things that we talk about. One is how to manage your nervous system, like how to deal with like anxiety and fight or flight and those kinds of feelings. And then secondly, we have these 6 building blocks, so things that you can put in your life so that you can be more resilient to stress and trauma. And then finally, how to build a sense of identity, particularly now when there's just so much attacking certain groups of people for their identity. And so it's really important that we stand up for young people to let them be who they are. What are some of the challenges that you feel like your generation is really facing right now?
In terms of mental health, we don't really open up about as much. I can sometimes be a little bit shy sometimes when meeting new people, but like occasionally I'm more I'm more outgoing in that sense. But I also think it's important to talk about sometimes. And it's important to talk about mental health as well because there's so much stigma about like reaching out and asking for help. And I think that's something that our generation could do more. Like if they had more of those resources. I think that would be amazing.
What would be a way that you would feel comfortable to talk about the things that have happened to you?
I would obviously want to be in a safe space. I would want to be in a trusted environment because if I needed to like anything to be kept private, I would be very firm about that sort of thing. And I think trust is a large thing that plays into me being able to talk about those sort of things that have happened to me.
And when you say trust, do you mean that they're not going to just like tell everybody everything that happened, or trust that the information you're going to get about how to get help is going to be good information, or both?
I think mainly it goes so it doesn't spread around. You are the one that gets to tell it, and it's not for anyone else to judge you for your experiences. It's not for anyone else to know, and that's why I always appreciate when people ask me if they're able to share only like rather than just share without my permission because it
Yeah.
just hurts because then it's just going to come right back around and I'm like, how did you find out about that?
That's pretty terrible. I mean, I guess people share because, you know, it's interesting. Trauma is always interesting, isn't it? Even though it's
Yeah.
awful. Hearing about other people's trauma is kind of like, I think a lot of people compare, like, oh, is that worse than mine? Which is really wrong because everybody, like you said, everyone's trauma is really personal. So, what about like at your school or going to a therapist? Is that something that's an option?
Yeah, so at which is where I go, of course, there's these sessions called Timely Care. You get every semester, you get 10 free sessions, and they're some of the most amazing counselors I've ever worked with. I spend a lot of my time on campus if I need to de-stress or if I just need a moment alone or that sort of thing by myself. Or if I'm with friends as well. It's a very relaxing environment. All of the counselors there, they're so kind and caring and willing to listen to students. And that's, I think, something that I lacked when I was younger.
What's your major? Are you interested in like psychology or therapy or that sort of thing?
So I had originally entered into DBC as a environmental science major, but I didn't see myself going into that sort of career. And then I kind of switched to psychology. Maybe I would major in psychology and then I would minor in studio art. And then I don't see myself necessarily doing that sort of work in doing anything in the field of psychology. So I decided to be a studio art major full time. It's definitely been a learning experience for me because I've learned so much about myself in those years. And also I've just learned more about my passion as well and the things I like to do. I was officer for a positive psychology club that was on campus, and that some of the work that we did was empowering mental health as well and teaching positive coping mechanisms.
There was like one big kind of psychology related mindset kind of advice that you would give to someone who is, like your age and in college, what would it be?
If I was talking to anyone who was going into college, I would say definitely don't put a lot of stress on yourself because I wish I could go back in time and tell myself, like, you don't, you don't need to do, you don't need to do all of these credits and you don't need to do all of these classes in order to prove yourself because you're on your own path and you're learning at your own pace. Obviously, there's been mental health circumstances and life experiences that have made it kind of hard, and I've had to withdraw from some classes. I'm not proud of having to withdraw from those classes, but I do feel strongly that when you're going through a really tough life experience, it's very important to not be so hard on yourself as well and be able to give yourself some grace because you never know what someone's going through, and it doesn't make you less of a person if you're not able to do something right in the moment.
I think about Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, who, both like these elite athletes that said, stop, I'm checking out for a while because my mental health needs to be taken care of too. I mean, like
Yeah.
if they hurt their knee or, their ankle or something, they would take the time off, and to destigmatize it that way and say, no, I'm fine physically, but my emotional mental health needs help. I'm taking the time off. I think that was really powerful and good for you for recognizing that as well.
We were just talking before we started the podcast. The last couple of weeks, I've kind of just came to the realization I've been in like a little bit of a depression. And I noticed the first thing that I almost unconsciously, the first thing that I started to do was just drop things off of my plate. And it was like this huge, like I had this huge sense of almost like this huge sense of guilt, like almost like dread. Like, what am I going to tell this person? What am I going to do? Like, how will I even spend my time? But like, I just have this overwhelming feeling that like whatever I'm doing right now is a bit too much. And I'm kind of ramping things back up for myself, but it's the thing you said about giving yourself grace. I'd like to pick your brain on that a little bit more, especially when I think some of that guilt that I was feeling was from, I know you hear it all the time, but like society, like I'm sure in school, like people are taking all the credits they can get. They want all the jobs they can get. They want internships. They want whatever. I'm looking around like me, like, I think like I have to keep up this pace of work because if I don't, then, like what about, bills or what about this? Or what if I'm not maintaining my relationships with my family enough? But then it starts to become this, like almost like this tug of war between what I need for myself and what I feel like I need to do to maintain almost like a sense of status or like to like maintain relationships or stay in like a good light almost. And I know it sounds silly like when you say it out loud, because like, yeah, do what you want to do for yourself. But I think when you're in the moment, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like I don't know, like how are you navigating that? And especially when, like you said, like things kind of pile up or something happens that you didn't expect. How do you give yourself that grace to just do what you need to do?
I think something that's really important for me is just recognizing just when in the moment I'm stressed and I need breaks, like being able to if I need to take a break from doing something like homework or if I'm stressed about it, just being able to take breaks, going on walks, getting outside has really been nice for me to de-stress because I'm in an outside environment with nature. And also just if I want to do anything to de-stress, like listening to music or reading a good book, that always helps. Also, just doing things that I love, like I like to cook and bake, and those are some things that I like to do as well.
You just named a whole bunch of really good coping skills, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we have a rule for coping skills is do whatever makes you feel good today, as long as it also makes you feel good tomorrow, right? Like,
absolutely.
just don't do something that's going to be crazy or that you'll regret, I guess, but other than that, and being out in nature for some reason is extremely healing for a lot of
Absolutely.
people. And a lot of us don't really, like we live around nature, but we're not, we're in concrete and asphalt and that's it. Where would you say you are in like your healing journey from trauma? You know, because I feel like it's a process, right? As somebody who's older than you guys, like I know you'll go through ups and downs in life, and that trauma doesn't necessarily go away, but it becomes more manageable. Like you kind of grow bigger than it, right? So how do you feel about that, and what's helping you if you do feel like you're getting on that journey?
Honestly, when I was like, it's been a journey, is what I
Mhm.
will say. Emotions come in waves, and you can't really deal with them all at once sometimes. I remember in specifically in April, I was going through a really depressive sort of period where I was experiencing a lot of traumatic flashbacks of stuff that was going on from an experience that had happened a few months prior. And it was just a really hard time for me because it felt like I couldn't get out of bed. Like I was always in a low mood. I was just aimlessly wandering around, and I still wanted to be that best example that I could be and still show up and be able to go to my classes and be able to be the best sort of person I can be despite these circumstances. And it's hard. It's hard to do that sort of thing. So that was something that really impacted me for a while. And I think really what has helped me is having friends and the support of friends, and then also like people around me who care, like just being able to listen to those sort of experiences and like also be there for me. Like it just meant a lot to me.
You're describing a lot of what we call our six building blocks for life. So we always say, protect yourself, like you were saying, you want to build some boundaries around yourself that if you're not feeling great, you can step back, and take care of yourself. Secondly, is relationships, having relationships where not only that you have people that you can trust, but also that that they're going to be responsive. Like if you talk to your friends, that they're actually listening and caring when and it sounds like you have those kinds of friends. The third building block is coping skills, which you've talked about. And the fourth one is confidence. How do you build a sense of confidence? Not just in like, can I do school, but can I handle life? Right? Do you
Mhm.
have any? And then I'll tell you the other two are belonging and storytelling. And storytelling is what you're doing now or what you would do if you would sit down with a counselor. But for confidence, how are you building your sense of like I'm getting better and better at this? If you feel that way, and if you don't, what could help you get there?
I think for me, talking about some of those experiences, and then it just feels like a weight is lifted off of you. And I think also what has helped me build confidence is a lot of just the work that I like to do it like through clubs and also just learning in my classes as well. Like in my art classes, for example, I like learning about different techniques and learning about those sort of subjects helps me get my mind off of things as well. I think I'm honestly taking it day by day,
Mhm.
and how I'm feeling. But so far, like I'm very happy at where I'm at compared to a few months ago where I was feeling at a really low point. I was struggling in talking to people. Like I felt like there was something that was holding me back, and I felt like there was like a rock or weight that was crushing me, and it just hurt. And I knew I couldn't carry that sort of thing anymore around me, and I had to do something about it. And it made me feel good when I was able to talk about that sort of thing and then also do things to help me get my mind off of it as well.
What would you say to somebody who might be feeling that kind of feeling, that weight on your, which is very common when you're feeling depression. And
Yeah.
so a lot of people don't recognize how much physically you can feel depression in your body. What would you say to someone who feels like that and doesn't know how to talk about it, about what's happening? Do you have any advice?
Simply for me, just letting them know like you're not alone. I used to feel so alone in feeling these sort of things and feeling and I mean just feeling those sort of things like um I would say like sometimes I have moments where I get really emotional, but like, and I get upset, and that leads me to get like emotional. But I also want people who are going through those sort of things to just know that they're not alone. Like you can overcome this, even though it seems like such an obstacle right now. You're not alone. We're here for you,
Yeah.
and that's something that's super important.
That is really, really important to hear. Tyler, did you want to add anything or you had any questions?
Well, I think it's funny that, that's what you would say. It's echoed quite a bit in, psychology, philosophy, religion, that suffering is what connects us as humans. And I mean, it's a little dark, but I think there's another way that you can look at those painful moments. It's almost like, I don't want to say like a rite of passage, but it's almost, I think, yeah, we're not alone, and it's something that we all feel. And I think if we're able to, personally, I think if we're able to accept it, we open ourselves to like the spectrum of human emotions. We open ourselves up to be more of who we are. And I don't know why. And it kind of makes me think about what you said in the beginning about, having safe spaces or having people, and not all the time is the time to talk about what you've been through. But I do think there's maybe something that maybe in this point of time that's not really clicking for us, that's not allowing people to be themselves, themselves, including the things that they've been through. And also, like you said, something that really bothers me is when I tell somebody something about myself and they immediately form a picture of who I am because of that. Or from that moment on, everything that I do is because of that thing that I experienced. I think in that way, we reinforce that aloneness when we alienate people. And I think maybe sometimes even alienate ourselves and not acknowledging what we need. But, nothing really to add, but I think it's more powerful than people realize.
Mm.
And at the same time, I don't wanna say, the powers that be, or like there's someone trying to oppress us all, but I think sometimes it could be worth asking, what does someone have to gain by making us not feel like ourselves, or trying to almost like compartmentalize people? Is school, workplace, just relationships? I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested in hearing what you think about where that kind of acceptable space is where you can be yourself, trauma included, but it's not also like there's no stigma attached to it. Like, where do you? And I'm sure you see it quite a bit with some of the clubs that you're involved in. Like, how do you manage those spaces so people have that freedom, but they have the freedom, but it's also like it doesn't become the focal point of who they are.
So, this is something that I was experiencing recently where I was thinking about like a lot of the work that I do in some of the clubs that I'm in. just being the semester before, I was still gaining confidence in even just talking about certain things, like, because I've never had such an open environment like that before where I talk about certain things. It's okay if you're not able to talk about certain things. You don't have to be like, you don't have to talk all the time. You don't have to talk at all. Like, you can even just be there to listen.
So you mean like if you joined a club that was related to something like around your identity,
Mhm.
or like what are some of the other clubs? So you said the Pride, what was the acronym again?
Pride Student Association?
The PSA, the Pride Student
Yes.
Association. What other clubs are available where you could, and I'm just mean like generically, like in colleges, what kinds of clubs do you find where people could go and do that, just be part of a group without having to necessarily share your trauma story, but also be able to, just like you said, sit and listen and just be part of the conversation in that way.
I think also it doesn't have to be a club that's surrounding certain like parts of your identity. It can also just be a club that's used like that's a de-stressor because often find that when I'm doing art, it can be a very healing
Mm.
experience because there's a creative arts society at my school, also the crochet club, and that sort of things. And that those give me hands-on options where I can be social with people. I don't have to talk about like those sort of deep topics all the time.
Mhm.
I can just do art because even though we don't realize it, art is something that like brings people together and it can also have its own hidden meanings inside it as well. Like we're surrounded by art. Art can just also mean move like films, television, animation, music, anything you can think of.
I mean,
Even
art, graffiti, car
yeah.
design. I mean, there's art everywhere. And the great thing about art too is that you can get a lot of your emotions out in your
Mhm.
artwork as well. So let me ask you this. If
Yeah.
somebody was listening and they're saying, I I get what you're saying, that I can, because I maybe feel a little lonely. I feel like I'm not really connecting with people, maybe join some kind of club where I might just have a interest. But what if I make friends and I do want to share my trauma past because it is a part of my experience and I want to be able to share it? What is, in your experience, has been the best way to open yourself up to people?
Definitely, as I was saying earlier, making sure to be around people who have your back and who've got your back, like you can trust them, and who are able to also listen to you and not be like, "I'm sorry about that," or just be flat
Mm,
or be like or just ignore it.
yeah.
Because I often find because I've dealt with people who are like that as well. Like they'll just be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you want to establish that sort of connection before you end up sharing something like that.
Yeah.
Because I often find like if I was just meeting something for the first time and that was something I shared to them, I would be like, that's really something personal.
And some people just don't have the personality to deal with it, like they don't know what to say. It's not that they don't think that it's significant, but sometimes people just,
It's
they
true.
just like, I don't know what to say and I don't, or they're afraid they'll say the wrong thing and hurt you more, things like that.
I know. I know. Yeah.
Hard. Tyler, do you have any other questions?
But kind of speaking of like like loneliness and like talking to people or opening up, like it's one thing to like be dealing with something and then kind of feel like it's your burden or like you're kind of lonely. And then to me, I always find it hurts even more when you try to say something about it and then like you get met with like that flatness or somebody then tries to immediately give you advice or someone tries to like kind of use it maybe as a launching pad for them to tell you about whatever they're going through. And then it's not like, okay, I still have this stuff. I'm still kind of lonely, and now I'm also misunderstood. And I don't know, maybe that kind of boils down to like compassion or something. I think when people do open up to you, there's some sort of social responsibility. Like, yeah, I don't know, we're busy. We got lives to live, but I don't think slowing down sometimes, you never know what sort of difference that might make for someone.
Elsie, is there anything that you feel like you really want to share? Just, yeah, I mean, the floor is yours if there's anything that you feel like you want to talk about.
I would say that like you're not alone in your struggles, as I was saying before. And if you notice that someone is having a hard time, someone close to you, it doesn't just be there for them. It makes all the difference to be there for someone you care about. And even if you don't know someone, it's not your business to judge them and to be like, well, she looks sad all the time, or he looks sad all the time, or they look sad all the time. You don't know what someone's going through, and you don't know what someone's mental health is like. Just be there, be able to be open when you can, and just be there for the people that you care about. And I think that's something that's really important for me.
Yeah, that was really well said. Can you offer advice to somebody who says, "Look, I have a friend. I know that I think there's something going on with them. They've become much more quiet, or they don't hang out as much, or they seem like something's going on, and I don't know how to talk to them about it." Can you give them some suggestions on how to approach something like that?
I've dealt with it with people where they're kind of like, well, do you need support? Do you need advice? Do you need comfort? What do you need? And well, acknowledging that sort of feeling. And I think also you just need to give them a little bit of space to work through it as well. And if they are comfortable sharing, they will share when they are ready. If they don't want to share at all, that's okay too. And
You're reminding me of Shankel, who's one of our alum here at Bounce Back Generation. And she's really a great friend and really responsive to people who need her. And one of the things that she does, which I think is really great, and you reminded me of this, is when a friend approaches and says, something's going on with my life, she always says, what is it that you need from me? Do you want me to just listen? Do you want me to offer advice? Do you want me to just sit with you? Tell me, and I can be all of those things or any one of those things. And I think that's just such a great way of approaching it, to give the power back to the person who is the one that needs the help. And then that helps to address what you were talking about, Tyler, which is that thing that we all want to do, which is to say, let me fix it, or, let me tell you about the time that happened to me, and that isn't always the helpful thing that you want to hear. So you've been really great, Elsie. I mean,
thank you so much.
you're such a deep, and I can tell this is such a beautiful soul and sensitive. And I think that's just so valuable and needed in this world. And the more you can tell people you didn't have to tell us your trauma story. All you did was tell us how we can be around that and hold it so that you can heal. And I think that's such a powerful and important message. And I'm so grateful that you have given it to us. Tyler?
I was just saying it was really great meeting you.
Of course. Thank you so much.